Okay, so it's been a little bit, so I'm gonna start. Um, and yeah, there might be some gaps, but I think it's fine. Okay. Deuteronomy 13, I think. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. If a prophet or a dreamer of dreams arises among you and gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder comes true, concerning which he spoke to you, saying, "Let us go after other gods, whom you have not known, and let us serve them," you shall not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For the Lord your God is testing you to find out if you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. You shall follow the Lord your God and fear him, and you shall keep his commandments. Listen to his voice, serve him, and cling to him. But that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has counseled rebellion against the Lord your God, who brought you from the land of Egypt and redeemed you from the house of slavery, to seduce you from the way in which the Lord your God commanded you to walk. So you shall purge the evil from among you. If your brother, your mother's son, or your son or daughter, or the wife you cherish, or your friend who is your own soul, who is as your own soul, entice you secretly, saying, "Let us go and serve other gods," whom neither you nor your fathers have known, of the gods of the peoples who are around you, near you or far from you, from one end of the earth to the other end. You shall not yield to him or listen to him, and your eye shall not pity him, nor shall you spare or conceal him. But you shall surely kill him, and your hand shall be first against him to put him to death, and afterwards the hand of all the people. So you shall stone him to death, because he has sought to seduce you from the Lord your God, who brought you out from the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Then all Israel will hear and be afraid, and will never again do such a wicked thing among you. If you hear in one of your cities, which the Lord your God is giving you to live in, anyone saying that some worthless men have gone out from among you and have seduced the inhabitants of their city, saying, "Let us go and serve other gods, whom you have not known," then you shall investigate and search out and inquire thoroughly if it is true, and the matter established that this abomination has been done among you. You shall surely strike the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying it and all that is in it, and its cattle with the edge of the sword. Then you shall gather all its booty into the middle of its open square, and burn the city and all its booty with fire as a whole burnt offering to the Lord your God. Oh, I did not know that. And it shall be a ruin forever. It shall never be rebuilt. Nothing from that which is put under the ban shall cling to your hand, in order that the Lord may turn from his burning anger and show mercy to you, and have compassion on you, and make you increase, just as he has sworn to your fathers. If you will listen to the voice of the Lord your God, keeping all his commandments which I am commanding you today, and doing what is right in the sight of the Lord your God. Okay, that's 13. Okay, I think I should do a little bit more. Chapter 14. You are the sons of the Lord your God. You shall not cut yourselves, nor shave your forehead, for the sake of the dead, For you are a holy people to the Lord your God, and the Lord has chosen you to be a people for his own possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. You shall not eat any detestable thing. These are the animals which you may eat: the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roebuck, the wild goat, the ibex, the antelope, and the mountain sheep. Any animal that divides the hoof and has the hoof split in two, and chews the cud, among the animals that you may eat. Nevertheless, you are not to eat of these animals those which chew the cud, or among those that divide the hoof in two: the camel, and the rabbit, and the chiffon. Not sure what that is. Oh, okay. A small furry animal. Okay. Wait a second. Let's hoof us this either those true cut those the hoof into the camel, and the rabbit and the chiffon, for they chew the cud. For though they chew the cud, they do not divide the hoof. They are unclean for you. The pig, because it divides the hoof but does not chew the cud, it is unclean for you. You shall not eat any of their flesh, nor touch their carcasses. These you may eat of all that are in the water. Anything that has fins and scales you may eat. But anything that does not have fins and scales you shall not eat. It is unclean for you. You may eat any clean bird, but these are the ones which you shall not eat: the eagle and the vulture and the buzzard. What's a buzzard? A black vulture? Oh, a black vulture. And the red kite, the falcon, and the kite in their kinds, and every raven in its kind, and the ostrich, the owl, the seagull, the hawk in their kinds, the little owl, the gray owl, the white owl, the pelican, the carrion vulture, the cormorant. Okay, the NASB is definitely a little bit different than the ESV. I can just like the animals are different, I think. The cormorant, the stork, and the heron and their kinds, and the hoopoe and the bat, and all the teeming life with wings that are unclean to you, they shall not be eaten. You may eat any clean bird. You shall not eat anything which dies of itself. You may give it to the alien who is in your town, so that he may eat it, or you may sell it to a foreigner, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. This my study note on this is: this prohibition no doubt reflected a common practice in Canaanite religion, which was superstitiously observed, hoping that fertility and productivity would be increased. Fertility of the goat or a person? Probably a person, whatever. Okay. You shall surely tithe all the produce from what you sow, which comes out of the field every year. You shall eat in the presence of the Lord your God at the place where he chooses to establish his name. The tithe of your grain, your new wine, your oil, and the firstborn of your herd and your flock, so that you may learn to fear the Lord your God always. If the distance is so great for you that you are not able to bring the tithe, since the place where the Lord your God chooses to set his name, wait, what? Since the place where the Lord your God chooses to set his name is too far away from you, when the Lord your God blesses you, then you shall exchange it for money, and bind the money in your hand, and go to the place which the Lord your God chooses. You may spend the money for whatever your heart desires, for oxen or sheep, or wine or strong drink, or whatever your heart desires. And there you shall eat in the presence of the Lord your God and rejoice, you and your household. Also you shall not neglect the Levite who is in your town, for he has no portion or inheritance among you. At the end of every third year you shall bring out all the tithe of your produce in that year, and shall deposit it in your town, the Levite, because he has no portion or inheritance among you. And the alien and the orphan and the widow who are in your town shall come and eat and be satisfied, in order that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hand which you do. Psalm 132. Remember, O Lord, on David's behalf all his affliction, how he swore to the Lord and vowed to the mighty one of Jacob, surely I will not enter my house, nor lie on my bed. I will not give sleep to my eyes, or slumber to my eyelids, until I find a place for the Lord, a dwelling place for the mighty one of Jacob. Behold, we heard of it in Ephrathah. We found it in the field of Jar. Let us go into his dwelling place. Let us worship at his footstool. Sorry, 1 second. Alright, behold, we heard of it in Ephrathah. We found it in the field of Jar. Let us go into his dwelling place. Place. Let us worship at his footstool. Arise, O Lord, to your resting place, you and the ark of your strength. Let your priests be clothed with righteousness, and let your godly ones sing for joy. For the sake of David your servant, do not turn away the face of your anointed. The Lord has sworn to David a truth from which he will not turn back. Of the fruit of your body I will set up your throne. I will set upon your throne. If your sons will keep my covenant and my testimony, which I will teach them, their sons also shall sit upon your throne forever. For the Lord has chosen Zion, he has desired it for his habitation. This is my resting place forever. Here I will dwell, for I have desired it. I will abundantly bless her provision. I will satisfy her needy with bread. Her priests also I will clothe with salvation, and her godly ones will sing aloud for joy. There I will cause the horn of David to spring forth. I have prepared a lamp for mine anointed. His enemies will clothe him. I will clothe with shame. But upon himself his crown shall shine. Okay. John 17. Jesus spoke. 1 second. Jesus spoke these things and lifted up his eyes to heaven. He said, Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that the Son may glorify you, even as you gave him authority over all flesh, that to all whom you have given him he may give eternal life. This is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. I glorified you on the earth, having accomplished the work which you have given me to do. Now, Father, glorify me together with yourself, with the glory that I had with you before the world was. Uh, mm, okay. I have manifested your name to the men whom you gave me out of the world. They were yours, and you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. Now they have come to know that everything you have given me is from you. For the words which you gave me, I have given to them, and they received them and truly understood that I came forth from you. And they believed that you sent me. I asked on their behalf. I do not ask on behalf of the world, but of those whom you have given me. For they are yours, and all things that are mine are yours, and yours are mine, and I have been glorified in them. I am no longer in the world, and yet they themselves are in the world, and I come to you. Holy Father, keep them, that they may be one even as we are. While I was with them, I was keeping them in your name, which you have given me. And I guarded them, and not one of them perished, but the son of perdition, so that the scripture would be fulfilled. But now I come to you, and these things I speak in the world, so that they may have my joy made full in themselves. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. I do not ask you to take them out of the world, but to keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I also have sent them into the world. For their sakes I sanctify myself, that they themselves also may be sanctified in truth. Word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I also have sent them into the world. For their sakes I sanctify myself, that they themselves also may be sanctified in the truth. I do not ask, oh, wait a second, I sanctify myself, meaning only that he was totally set apart for the Father's will. He did that in order that believers might be set apart to God by the truth he brought. I thought he was maybe saying that he grew in knowledge and stuff so that other people would be sanctified and other people would know how to do it correctly. I don't know. I do not ask on behalf of these alone, but for those also who believe in me through their word, that they may. So I think everything he said up to this point is primarily directed at the apostles because of this sentence. I do not ask on behalf of these alone, but for those who believe in me according to their word, or through their word, that they may all be one, even as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you sent me. The world may believe that you sent me. The glory which you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one, just as we are one. And I in them, and you in me, that they may be perfected in unity. I in them, and you in me, that they may be perfected in unity, so that the world may know that you sent me and love them, even as you have loved me. Father, I desire that they also, whom you have given me, be with me where I am, so that they may see my glory, which you have given me. For you loved me before the foundation of the world. O righteous Father, although the world has not known you, yet I have known you, and these have known that you sent me, and I have made your nature, your name known to them, and will make it known, so that the love with which you love me may be in them, and I in them. Wow, that first part of the last sentence, or not the first part. The first part of the second part of the last sentence, so that the love with which you love me may be in them. That's the topic of the chapter that I'm reading with my friend in this like John, and it's talking about like the love of believer of Christ or on Christ. And like one of the first paragraphs is talking about how he said something like the principal blessedness of the Trinity is like the mutual love between the Father and the Son in the Spirit. So he was saying that one of the big things that the Father does, just like within the Trinity, is he loves the Son. And so he was saying like creatures being made in the image of God, like one of their primary like things that they ought to do and like are created to do. And what like reflects them being made in the image of God, or what that means is like to love the Son the same way the Father loves the Son. And so he talked about like all creatures like made in the image of God like are supposed to do that. So like angels are supposed to like love the Son, and us, humans are supposed to love the Son. It was fascinating, like little stuff like that. It's like it's so specific. You really. What do you even think of that? But it makes sense. Okay. Oh yeah. So before I was doing Westminster Confession, I read it. So we finished that, or I finished that like offline. Just gonna start something. So I think instead of doing that now, let's just keep going with the same theme. So, excuse me. Yeah, I think I should just start doing like reading confessions and stuff, so I can read a different confession, or I can like do the catechism thing. I think I'll do the catechism thing. So Westminster. I'll start with like the shorter catechism, like go for the longer catechism after that. And yeah, I'll just do that on this thing, on this John. So, all right, it's right here. So how many questions? So there's 107 questions in the shorter catechism. So I'll do like 5. Let's try 5. Let me just make a note of this. Okay, here's the questions. So question 1 of the shorter. What is the chief end of man? What is the chief end of man? Answer, man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. So I have heard of that one before. Probably because it's the first one. Man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. Glorify, enjoy. Okay, second question. What rule hath God given to direct us how we may glorify and enjoy Him? Answer. The Word of God, which is contained in the scriptures of the Old and New Testaments, is the only rule to direct us how we may glorify and enjoy Him. Okay. Kind of makes sense. Okay, question 3. What do the scriptures principally teach? What do the scriptures principally teach? I think of I wonder how they're going to organize it. I'm going to guess they're going to say, like, what is true and, like, what to do about it type stuff. The scriptures principally teach what man is to believe concerning God and what duty God requires of man. Oh my gosh. It's a good guess. Wait, okay, one more time. The scriptures principally teach what man is to believe concerning God and what duty God requires of man. Okay. Got it. Question 4. What is God? Huh, interesting. They said what? What is God? Okay, pardon the interruption. Getting some electrolyte water. So, question 4, what is God? I just took a glance at it, but I'm going to guess that, so kind of spoiled it, but I guess it's talking about the attribute, like some attributes of God or something like that. Answer. God is a spirit, Okay, that makes sense. Infinite, eternal, changeable in his being, wisdom, power, holiness, justice, goodness, and truth. In his being, wisdom, power, holiness, justice, goodness, and truth. Okay. Question 5. Are there more gods than one? I'm going to guess no. Wild guess. Answer. There is but one only, the living and true God. Question 6. How many persons are there in the Godhead? Wild guess 3. There are 3 persons in the Godhead, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and these 3 are one God and the same in substance, equal in power and glory. Same in substance, equal in power and glory. Question 7. What are the decrees of God? Ooh, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what they're going to say here. What are the decrees? Answer. The decrees of God are his eternal purpose, according to the counsel of his will, whereby for his own glory he hath foreordained whatsoever comes to pass. So the decrees is his, what did they say? His eternal purpose for everything, it sounds like. For everything. According to the council as well, for his own glory he foreordains whatsoever comes to pass. So that's the decrees, okay. Okay, it makes sense now that I think about it. Question 8. How doth God execute his decrees? How does he execute his decrees? I have no idea what they would say here. 8. God executeth his decrees in the works of creation and providence. Okay. Creation, providence. Question 9. What is the work of creation? The work of creation. Is it seven days? God creates the heavens, the earth, inhabitants of the earth, separates like different parts of the earth, different creatures to be in each part, creates man. I guess it's gonna talk about the angels, so I'm not sure if the angels are, I'm assuming they're created before the earth. Yeah, probably put the angels in the heavens. Okay, let me think about this. Or let's read it. Question 9. What is the work of creation? The work of creation is God's making all things of nothing, the word of his power in the space of 6 days, and all very good. Okay. Yeah, I forgot it's like 6 days, not 7 days. Okay. 6 days. So it's just basically making all things in the space of 6 days, and all very good. Question 10. How did God create man? How did God create man? Oh, I already looked at the answer, so I'm just going to read it. How God created man, male and female, after his own image, in knowledge, in righteousness and holiness, with dominion over the creatures. Makes sense. This is all good stuff. Okay, so that's the first 10. I'm just going to stop there for now. We'll just go through it more. So if I'm doing 10, it should take like a week or something. Or less than 2 weeks. Okay. I'm going to crack open some Burkhoff. Maybe I need like one of those little school desks so I can like put my books on something to read it at the appropriate height. Excuse me. Okay. Part B, the possibility of knowing the being of God. From the preceding, it already appears that the question asks the possibility of knowing God in his essential being. It engaged the best minds of the church from the earliest centuries, and the consensus of opinion in the early church during the Middle Ages and at the time of the Reformation was that God in his inmost being is the incomprehensible one. And in some cases, the language used is so strong that it seemingly allows of no knowledge of the being of God whatsoever. At the same time, they who use it, at least in some cases, seem to have considerable knowledge of the being of God. Misunderstanding can easily result from a failure to understand the exact question under consideration, and from neglecting to discriminate between knowing and comprehending. The scholastics spoke of 3 questions to which all the speculations respecting the divine being could be reduced, namely, an sit Deus, quid sit Deus, and qualis se Deus, Deus Deus. The first question concerns the existence of God, the second his nature or essence, and the third his attributes. In this paragraph, it is particularly the second question that calls for attention. The question then is, what is God? What is the nature of his inner constitution? What makes him to be what he is? In order to answer that question adequately, we would have to be able to comprehend God and to offer a satisfactory explanation of his divine being. And this is utterly impossible. The finite cannot comprehend the infinite. The question of Zophar, canst thou by searching find out God? Canst thou find out the Almighty under perfection? Job 11:7, has the force of a strong negative. And if we consider the second question entirely apart from the third, our negative answer becomes even more inclusive. Apart from the revelation of God and his attributes, we have no knowledge of the being of God whatsoever. But insofar as God reveals himself and his attributes, we also have some knowledge of his divine being. Though even so, our knowledge is subject to human limitations. Luther uses some, no, this is another new paragraph. Luther uses some very strong expressions respecting our inability to know something of the being or essence of God. On the one hand, he distinguishes between the Deus absconditus, hidden God, and the Deus revelatus, revealed God. But on the other hand, he also asserts that by knowing the Deus revelatus, we only know him in his hiddenness. By this, he means that even in his revelation, God has not manifested himself entirely as he is essentially, but as his essence still remains shrouded. But as to his essence, still remains shrouded in impenetrable darkness. We know God only insofar as he enters into relations with us. Calvin too speaks of the divine essence as incomprehensible. He holds that God in the depths of his being is past finding out. Speaking of the knowledge of the quid and of the quals of God, he says that it is rather useless to speculate about the former, while our practical interest lies in the latter. Says he, quote, they are merely toying with frigid speculations whose mind is set on the question of what God is, quid sit Deus. When what it really concerns us to know is rather what kind of person he is, qualis sit, and what is appropriate to his nature. While he feels that God cannot be known to perfection, he does not deny that we can know something of his being or nature. While he feels that God cannot be known to perfection, he does not deny that we can know something of his being or nature. But this knowledge cannot be obtained by a priori methods, but only in an a posteriori manner through the attributes which he regards as real determinations of the nature of God. They convey to us at least some knowledge of what God is, but especially of what he is in relation to us. Okay. New paragraph. In dealing with our knowledge of the being of God, we must certainly avoid the position of cousin, rather rare in the history of philosophy, that God, even in the depths of his being, is not at all incomprehensible, but essentially intelligible. But we must also steer clear of the agnosticism of Hamilton and Mansell, according to which we can have no knowledge whatsoever of the being of God. We cannot comprehend God, cannot have an absolute and exhaustive knowledge of him, but we can undoubtedly have a relative or partial knowledge of the divine being. It is perfectly true that this knowledge of God is possible only because he has placed himself in certain relations to his mortal creatures and has revealed himself to them, and that even this knowledge is humanly conditioned, but it is nevertheless real and true knowledge, and is at least a partial knowledge of the absolute nature of God. There is a difference between an absolute knowledge and a relative or partial knowledge of an absolute being. It will not do at all to say that man knows only the relations in which God stands to his creatures. It would not even be possible to have a proper conception of these realities without knowing something of both God and man. To say that we can know nothing of the being of God, but can allow only relations, is equivalent to saying that we cannot know him at all, and cannot make him the object of our religion. Dr. Orr says, we may not know God in the depths of his absolute being, but we can at least know him insofar as he reveals himself in his relation to us. The question, therefore, is not as to the possibility of a knowledge of God in the unfathomableness of his being. The question, therefore, is not as to the possibility of a knowledge of God in the unfathomableness of his being, but is, can we know God as he enters into relations with the world and with ourselves? God has entered into relations with us in his revelations of himself, and supremely in Jesus Christ. And we Christians humbly claim that through this self-revelation we do know God to be the true God, and have real acquaintance with his character and will. Neither is it correct to say that this knowledge which we have of God is only a relative knowledge. It is in part a knowledge of the absolute nature of God as well. The last statements are probably intended to ward off the idea that all our knowledge of God is merely relative to the human mind, so that we have no assurance that it corresponds with the reality as it is in God. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Where were we? Oh, I remember now. Okay. Chapter 10, verse. Oh, this is Genesis chapter 10, verses 6 through 14. Okay. And the sons of Ham, Cush, Ram, and Phut, and Canaan, and the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Sabta, and Rama, and Sabteka, and the sons of Rama, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord. In the beginning, his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Ashur, and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth, and Calah, and Resen between Nineveh and Calah. The same is a great city. And Mizraim begat Ludim, and Anamim, and Lehabim, and Naphtahim, and Pathrasim, and Caslahim, out of whom came Philistine, and Caphtorim. By the way, I think this is probably obvious, but my pronunciation of these names is not like consistent. It's obviously not correct either, but I just mean like the syllables I'm saying, I'll pronounce the same syllable like in different ways. So just, I guess, ignore it. That which is observable and improvable in these verses, so this is Henry now. That which is observable and improvable in these verses is the account here given of Nimrod. Verse 8 through 10. Wow, I think this is the first time in the entire commentary that he like chooses to ignore some particular part. So I think he's saying the rest of it is not like, there's nothing he can say, but I think, which is surprising that this is the first time he did. Okay, that which is observable and improvable in these verses, his account here given of Nimrod, verse 8 through 10. He is here represented as a great man in his day. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. That is, whereas those that went before him were content to stand upon the same level with their neighbors. And though every man bore rule in his own house, Yet no man pretended any further. Nimrod's aspiring mind could not rest here. He was resolved to tower above his neighbors, not only to be eminent among them, but to lord it over them. The same spirit that actuated the giants before the flood, who became mighty men and men of renown, now revived in him. So soon was that tremendous judgment which the pride and tyranny of those mighty men brought upon the world forgotten. No, there are some in whom ambition and affectation of dominion seem to be bred in the bone. Such there have been and will be, notwithstanding the wrath of God often revealed from heaven against them. Nothing on this side of hell will humble and break the proud spirits of some men in this, like Lucifer. Isaiah 14 and 15. Now, first, Nimrod was a great hunter. With this he began, and for this became famous to a proverb. Every great hunter is, in remembrance of him, called a Nimrod. I didn't know that. What? First, some think he did good with his hunting. Serve his country by ridding it of the wild beasts which infested it, and so insinuated himself into the affections of his neighbors, and got to be their prince. Those that exercise authority either are, or at least would be called benefactors. Luke 22. Second, others think that under pretense of hunting, he gathered men under his command in pursuit of another game he had to play, which was to make himself master of the country and to bring them into subjection. He was a mighty hunter, that is, he was a violent invader of his neighbor's rights and properties, and a persecutor of innocent men, carrying all before him and endeavoring to make all his own by force and violence. He thought himself a mighty prince, but before the Lord, that is, in God's account, he was but a mighty hunter. Note, great conquerors are but great hunters. Alexander and Caesar would not make such a figure in scripture history as they do in common history. The former is represented in prophecy, but as a he-goat pushing. What? Oh, the former Alexander is represented in prophecy, but as a he-goat pushing. Daniel 8:5. Nimrod was a mighty hunter against the Lord. So in the Septuagint, that is, first he set up idolatry as Jeroboam did, for the confirming of his usurped dominion. That he might set up a new government, he set up a new religion upon the ruin of the primitive constitution of both. Babel was the mother of harlots. Or second, he carried on his oppression and violence in defiance of God himself, daring heaven with his impieties, as if he and his huntsmen could outbrave the Almighty and were a match for the Lord of hosts and all his armies. As if it were a small thing to weary men, he thinks to weary my God also. Isaiah 7:13. Roman numeral second. Nimrod was a great ruler. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, verse 10. Some way or other, by arts or arms. Let's go. Some way or other, by arts or arms, he got into power, either being chosen to it or forcing his way to it, and so laid the foundations of a monarchy which was afterwards a head of gold, and a terror of the mighty, and bade fair to be universal. It does not appear that he had any right to rule by birth, but either his fitness for government or recommended him, as some think, to an election, or by power and policy he advanced gradually and perhaps insensibly into the throne. See the antiquity of civil government, and particularly that form of it which lodges the sovereignty in a single person. If Nimrod and his neighbors began, other nations soon learned to incorporate under one head for their common safety and welfare, which, however it began, proved so great a blessing to the world that things were reckoned to go ill indeed when there was no king in Israel. Roman numeral third. Nimrod was a great builder. Probably he was architect in the building of Babel, and there he began his kingdom. But when his project to rule all the sons of Noah was baffled by the confusion of tongues, out of that land he went forth into Assyria, so the margin reads it, and built Nineveh, etc. That having built these cities, he might command them and rule over them. Observe in Nimrod the nature of ambition. First, it is boundless. Much would have more, and still cries, "Give, give." Second, it is restless. Nimrod, when he had 4 cities under his command, could not be content till he had 4 more. Third, it is expensive. Nimrod will rather be at the charge of rearing cities than not have the honor of ruling them. The spirit of building is the common effect of a spirit of pride. Fourth, it is daring and will stick at nothing. Nimrod's name signifies rebellion, which, if indeed he did abuse his power to the oppression of his neighbors, teaches us that tyrants to men are rebels to God, and their rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. Journal, you guys know, you guys get it, Direction 7th, second general part. What is here meant by peace? What is here meant by peace? The second inquiry follows, namely, what peace is here meant that is attributed to the gospel? Peace is a comprehensive word. We looked for peace, saith the prophet, but no good came. Jeremiah 8:15. Peace brings and carries away again with it all good, as the sun doth light, and to and from the world. Wait. What? Confused. I need like a thin pillow. I need something I can put on my lap, but this is too big. Okay. Yeah, this peace is a comprehensive word. We looked for peace, said the prophet, but no good came. Peace brings and carries away again with, as the sun doth light to and from the world. To and from the world, peace. Okay. When Christ would to the utmost express how well he wished his disciples, he wraps up all the happiness which his large heart could beterm them in this blessing of peace. Quote, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you." John 14:27. Now, take the peace in its greatest latitude, if not spurious, and it will be found to grow upon this gospel root. So that we shall lay the conclusion in general terms, doctrine. True peace is the blessing of the gospel, and only of the gospel. This will appear in the several kinds of peace, which may be sorted into this fourfold distinction. First, peace with God, which we may call peace of reconciliation. Second, peace with ourselves, or peace of conscience. Third, peace with one another, or peace of love and unity. Fourth, peace with the other creatures, even the most hurtful, which may be called a peace of indemnity and service. Let us begin where all the others begin, with peace of reconciliation with God. For when men fell out with God, he fell out with himself and all the world besides. And he can never come to be at peace with these till his peace be made with God. Tranquillus Deus tranquillat omnia. A tranquil God tranquilizes all things. Whoa. Whoa. Oh. Yo. That's crazy. Whoa. Okay, I'm in it right now. I'm ready for this. First kind of peace. Oh my God. The first kind of peace takes 30 pages. Oh my God. Oh, what are we doing? Okay. No, we gotta do it. It's so, it's gonna be so good after that introductory paragraph. Oh, okay. We gotta do it. We gotta do it. First kind of peace. Peace with God, the blessing of the gospel. Peace with God, we may call peace of reconciliation. And peace of reconciliation with God is the blessing of the gospel. Big stuff. Big stuff. 3 things are here to be done in prosecution of the point. First, I shall show you that there is a quarrel depending between God and the sons of men. Second, I shall show you that the gospel and only the gospel takes this up and makes peace betwixt God and man, therefore called the gospel of peace. Third, I shall show you why God conveys this peace of reconciliation into the world in this way and by this method. This is crazy. Let's keep going. First, I shall show you there is a quarrel depending betwixt God and the sons of men. Open acts of hostility done by one nation against another proclaim there is a war commenced. Now, such acts of hostility pass betwixt God and man. Bullets fly thickly to and fro on either hand. Man he lets fly against God, though against his will. He shoots short, whose whole volleys of sin and impieties. The best of saints acknowledge thus much of themselves before converting grace took them off. Quote, we ourselves also were sometimes foolish, disobedient, serving diverse lusts and pleasures. Titus 3:3. Mark the last words, serving lusts and pleasures. They were in pay to sin. Mark the last words, serving lusts and pleasures. They were in pay to sin, willing to fight against God and side with this, his only enemy. not a faculty of the soul or a member of the body of an unconverted man which is not in arms against them. The carnal mind, saith the apostle, is enmity against God. Romans 8:7. And if there be a war in the mind, to be sure there can be no peace in the members. Inferior faculties, I mean, of the soul, which are commanded all by it. Indeed, we are by nature worse in our best part. The enmity against God is chiefly seated in the superior faculties of the soul. As in armies, the common soldiery are wholly taken up with the booty and spoil they get by the war, without much minding one side or other. But the more principal officers, especially the prince or general, goes into the field full of enmity against them that oppose them. So the inferior faculties seek only satisfaction to their sensual appetite in the booty that sin affords, but the superior faculties of the mind, these come forth more directly against God and oppose his sovereignty. Yea, if it could lay a plot effectually to take away the life of God himself, there is enmity enough in the carnal mind to put it in execution. And as man is in arms against God, so is he against man. Quote, God is angry with the wicked every day. He hath bent his bow and made it ready. He hath also prepared for him the instruments of death. Psalm 7:11 through 13. God hath set up his royal standard in defiance of all the sons and daughters of apostate Adam, who from his own mouth are proclaimed rebels and traitors to his own to his crown and dignity. And as against such he hath taken the field, as with fire and sword, to be avenged on them. Yea, he gives the world sufficient testimony of his incensed wrath, by that of it which is revealed from heaven daily in the judgments executed upon sinners, and those, many of them, but of a span long, before they can show what nature they have by actual sin, yet crushed to death by God's righteous foot, only for the viper's kind of which they come. At every door where sin sets its foot, there the wrath of God meets us. Every faculty of soul and member of body are used as a weapon of unrighteousness against God. So everyone hath its portion of wrath, even to the tip of the tongue. A man is sinful all over, so is he cursed all over, inside and outside, soul and body, written all with woes and curses so close and full that there is not room for another to interline or add to what God hath written. In a word, so fiery is the Lord's wrath against sinful man that the creatures share with him in it. Wait, what? In a word, so fiery is the Lord's wrath against sinful man that all the creatures share with him in it. Though God takes his aim at man and levels his arrows primarily at his very heart, yet as they go, they slant upon the creature. Oh, the creatures, the other creatures. Oh, so confused. Oh, wow. That though God takes his aim at man and levels his arrows primarily at his very heart, yet as they go, they slant upon the creatures. God's curse blasts the whole creation for man's sake. And so he pays him some of his misery from the hand of those creatures which were primitively ordained to minister to him in his happy estate. Yea, contribute some drops to the filling of his cup. As an enraged army makes spoil and havoc of all in their enemy's land, destroys their provisions, stops or poisons their waters, burns up their houses, and lets out his fury on all his hand comes at. Truly thus God plagues man in every creature, and not one escapes his hand. The very bread we eat, water we drink, and air we breathe in are poisoned with the curse of God. of which they who live longest die at last. All these, however, are no more to hell than the few files of men in a forlorn to the whole body of an army. Wait. All these, however, are no more to hell than the few files of men in a forlorn to the whole body of an army. God doth but skirmish with sinners here by some small parties of his judgments, sent out to let them know they have an enemy that observes their motions, takes the alarm their sins give him, and it can be too hard for them when he pleaseth. But it is in hell where he falls on with his whole power. There sinners shall be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his power. 2 Thessalonians 1:9. And so much for the first, that there is a quarrel between God and man. The second follows. Wow. So I think the third, so that was the first. The second is, so the first was one, just that there is a quarrel between God and man. Second, I shall show you that the gospel, so only the gospel makes peace between this, fixes that problem. Third, I shall show you why God conveys this piece of reconciliation into the world in this way and by this method. So basically, why is the gospel? Why did he choose the gospel? So the second, I just saw the second branch, it's like another page or 2 pages. The third, I guess, is the rest of the 30 pages. So I guess he's going to go off on that. Maybe I'll just do the second then, because I was going to stop here, but the second is not that long. Maybe I'll just do it. It's been an hour. Okay, maybe I'll just stop here actually for now. That was good though. That was super engaging. Whew. Wow. Okay, thanks for joining. See you next time.